Hey guys, if you wanted to take a seat back here behind the table, those are open too.
Thank you.
Not sure where you got that. Yeah, there's space around here. It's okay.
Peanut butter on the holidays.
It is. It's a hotspot. It's a hotspot in more ways than one. The way you just mentioned that these microphones are live, so your conversation can be recorded. Oh, it doesn't get much better than that, right?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming in tonight to hear about this very exciting project. For the folks who are standing, I think there are a few empty chairs over here if you'd like to wander to the other side of the room. My name is Matt Miller. I am the Director of Community Development for the City of Plattsburgh. Shortly, I will be introducing Gail Henderson King from Whitenberg Real Estate Investment Advisors of Burlington, Vermont, who is the city's consultant for the Durkee Street redevelopment project, and also Todd Curley of Prime Companies of Co-Host New York, who is the developer for whom the Project Advisory Committee for this project has forwarded to the Common Council for their further consideration. So I wanted to give just a little bit of background of the process thus far and how we got to this point. Investment in downtown, it's been lagging for several years for a number of factors. There are challenges when you are developing downtown that you don't find in other places. Rural development, there's always several stakeholders involved. There are environmental concerns that you don't often run into elsewhere. But several challenges that make developing in a downtown area far more difficult than many other places. In comes the Downtown Revitalization Initiative from Governor Cuomo's office. This was a $10 million funding infusion for the city. There was a long process that the city went through to determine which projects would be chosen and how much of that $10 million would be allocated towards each one. At the end of that process, the state determined that the Durkee Street project promised the greatest benefit for the city and therefore was awarded the lion's share of the funding, $4.3 million. Ethan? The Durkee Street project, and this is more of an overarching map of all the projects that are going on downtown at the moment. The Durkee Street project, the footprint is in green. The ones that directly affect it are the Streetscape and Riverfront Access project. Again, that is also for the DRI, and that surrounds the Durkee Street site on 3 sides. And the other ones have ancillary effects, but none of them will affect the Durkee project directly, so I'm not going to touch on them right now. We have had several public forums in which they have been discussed in more detail, but if you'd like any more detail, you can certainly reach out to the Community Development Office. Okay, so for the parking on Durkee Street, the city understands that this is a very sensitive issue for a large number of stakeholders. The city is currently working on a parking management plan. A parking advisory committee has been constituted. Enough members have been confirmed where we can hold our first meeting, and I just sent out the notification for that meeting to those members this afternoon. It's going to be this coming Tuesday in this very room, starting at 7 o'clock. During this presentation, and again, we understand this is a sensitive issue, if you have questions regarding the parking on the Durkee Street site, certainly bring them up at this forum. If you have questions regarding the larger parking plan and things that are going on elsewhere in the city, Glens Falls, for instance, the Parking Advisory Committee meeting next Tuesday is a better forum to bring those up because it can tie into a lot of the other discussions that we're going to be having then. So the Riverfront Access and Streetscape project, again, that's going to require close coordination with the Durkee Street project to make sure that everything fits together correctly. The marketing, signage, and branding project is also going to be a part, but it's going to require less coordination because that involves simply the signage of the surrounding area. So now to talk a little bit about the project's goals and how we got to this point, I'll turn it over to Gail Henderson-King from White & Burke. One more thing, I would like to thank the members of the Project Advisory Committee who sat and worked to review the proposal that came in from Prime Companies. And just so I don't forget anybody, I brought the list. Those members are Gail, myself, Gary Douglas, president of the North Country Chamber of Commerce, Matt Spiegel, who is here tonight, owner of Olive Ridley's and the Naked Turtle, Renee McFarland, who is the executive director of the Clinton County Industrial Development Agency and also the economic development director for the county, Danielle Erb from the Strong Towns Group, Jim Abdallah from ADEA and also chairman of the city's planning board, and Debbie Momont, CEO of Twin State. So that was the pack, and it is intended that they will serve as informal advisors to the city during the course of the project. So while ordinary citizens can always bring concerns that they might have or questions to the city itself, they can also reach out to those PAC members directly, and they can serve as a conduit to bring to the city. So now I'll turn it over to Gail.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome. So I'm Gail Henderson-King with White & Burke. We were brought on this summer to help the city with developing the Durkee Street site. We started the project looking back at the project goals and objectives that were done as part of the DRI study back several years ago. And really all of it, as our initial review of it, felt that these are all still critical, and this was part of the goals and objectives for moving this project forward, revitalizing a key downtown block, hopefully sparking additional development and revitalization within the city with other DRI projects and other funding. And the whole theme of movement and connectivity, starting to make the Durkee Street site feel connection to the greater downtown area, as well as taking advantage of the riverfront. And there's just a series of objectives. It's really key to have this be a mixed-use development, having some community space, visual and physical connections to the riverfront, as well as parking on and off-site. So the process began with putting together a request for proposals that went out in mid-October. All the proposals were received in mid-November. A project advisory committee that Matt just described was created, and they reviewed the proposal and asked some additional questions of the developer. And tonight, Prime Company's proposal was selected for further review. So Prime Companies is a local New York company based out of Cohoes, New York. They've done projects throughout New York, but some major ones that we're aware of are Schenectady, Saratoga Springs, Cohoes, and Albany. They have experience with mixed-use developments. They take pride in their developments. They work with their municipalities, and they are key players within the community. They have outstanding references, and they're really excited about Plattsburgh. So I would like to introduce Prime Companies.
Todd Curley.
Todd Curley, thank you. Sorry, I was spacing on that. I apologize.
How you doing? How are you? My name is Todd Curley with Prime Companies, and I want to thank everybody for being here and welcoming us to your community. With me tonight are some of my team members, Steve McKenzie from McKenzie Architects, Turner Bradford, and Steve Beauvert from McFarland Johnson Civil Engineers. So a little bit about Prime Companies. We are a full-service real estate development company based in upstate New York and focused in upstate New York. One thing that really attracted us to this site is we like waterfront development. We've done a number of different projects on waterfront, and this site really has that characteristic of being right there on the Saranac River. Very attractive to us. Something else is redevelopment and mixed use in downtown locations, and certainly we see this as a great opportunity to do something in this neighborhood that could bring those characteristics here. I'll just go through briefly what we have proposed here, and I'm going to turn it over to Turner to go through site-specific items. But what we have proposed here on this site is roughly 127 market rate apartments, a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. as well as 13,000 square feet of commercial space, and could be retail, could be office, could be food and beverage. Something else that's on the site that's very important to us is the farmers market. So we incorporated a large 7,500 square foot area for a farmers market. Could be open air, could be enclosed, but it would be covered on the roof, and we'll go into that in further detail as the design process goes on. We know a couple of items that are very sensitive to the city, and rightfully so, is parking. We know right now it's a parking lot used by a lot of different uses, and we appreciate that. One thing that we did design on here is a self-sufficient parking plan, really to cover all the parking needs for this site specific. A lot of feedback that we received from our early on application is what else can you do for additional parking to meet the needs of neighboring businesses, landlords, and things like that. So it's something that we took those comments very strongly. We're trying to incorporate some more public parking onto the site. We are very early on in the process, but we're going to show you a couple of different renditions from where we started in the process, even to where we are today, just making some improvements to try to address some of the comments we heard from local residents and city officials based on our initial application. Our goal tonight is to have really an open forum. I'm sure there's a lot of questions and comments about who we are, what we have proposed. We're going to do our best to answer a lot of those questions, but we are very early on in the process. It's really concept right now. Hopefully you like what we have to offer, so we'd love to be part of the community and develop here. So again, we'll open up questions after we give a brief presentation on what we have proposed. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Turner Bradford just to go over some site specifics. Thanks again.
Thank you, Todd. So my name is Turner Bradford. I'm with McFarland Johnson, and we would wind up being the engineers for this project if it goes forward. I'm glad Todd brought up sort of the point where we are, because we are very early. We took a hard look at the site and worked with the architects and with the developer and read the RFP that was put together, and we're excited to show you what we came. Certainly, it is by no means an engineered solution, but we are here to show you what we got and talk about what we have at this point. So I think Matt and Gail both brought up the theme of connectivity and the other projects that are going on within Plattsburgh, both the streetscapes on both sides and the riverfront development. And so, you know, a main theme is connecting all that to the parkway in the north and really the rest of the city. Actually, I apologize, that's the west. I'm sure you turned it on me, but plan north. And so that's the sort of corridor coming down the middle with the, you know, and brick walkway, planters, you know, those are the sort of details that certainly are not fleshed out, but that's the idea. That is, you know, an open space that can be utilized. I mean, I think right now the home of the future home of the city market would be in there, and making that space available to them, you know, when the weather's warm, and then really connecting the site to the river walkway and the street above. This area here, and Todd might be able to shed a little more light on this in a little bit, but those are the amenities that Prime Development really includes with what they provide for their housing, and those would be sort of available to the people in the housing and not publicly available. They just can't make a pool publicly available. Lawyers won't let you do it. But so that's what that area is. And then obviously, as we touched on, parking. So this is what was submitted in the RFP. And this would be parking sufficient for what Prime would provide on the site. There's actually additional parking to this underneath this building here. There's a basement parking, which really you would enter at grade at this point. The grade on Bridge Street, it's 10 to 12 feet different actually from here to the top. So you would actually enter the basement here, and there'd be a parking garage underneath that building. Actually, if you want to, do you have the other one? So after submitting the proposal, we met with the folks at the development department, and they gave us some feedback, and we get it, we heard it. The number one comment was parking. And so we came up with this, which actually I think they saw for the first time today. Actually, Todd hasn't seen it for the first time. But he said, go ahead, show it. So, you know, it very much is in line with what's shown in the parking study. You know, trying to maximize that public parking. And really that's, I guess, virtually the only difference between what we had on the other one and this one. But I think the number is 67 street parking spaces, which, I mean, if you look at the parallel parking to the angled parking, you know, you're about doubling your number from the parallel to the angled along the street there. And everything else sort of works the same. There's parking underneath, internal to the site. I mean, so those were the things that we were trying to do that really were driving the layout of the site. And certainly, you know, as we open it up, if you guys have questions, we're here to answer them. So, yeah, I don't know if do you have a
Yeah, should be able to score.
there were some other stuff provided in the RFP that were, you know, sort of a street level elevation from the corner of Durkee and Bridge. There it is, looking at the corner. Again, I think it's pretty, you know, early stages, high level planning, but this is the type of product that Brian provides. And you know, this is a pretty good example of what they build and maintain. Yeah.
I'll just talk a little bit about the elevation architects here. So again, early stages, but really what we have proposed here is a 4-story building plus a mezzanine level. So if you can see, you know, Durkee and Bridge, so that first story right there is what we would look for all of our commercial space. All the units up above would be residential units. The mezzanine level gives us a pretty good opportunity to do a number of different things. It may give us an opportunity to have some 2-story duplex units. It also gives us some rooftop amenities, which we like to offer. A couple of things we've kicked around and we've had in other properties is rooftop gymnasiums. We do a pet area on the roof, so if you have pets, it's a pet-friendly building. You could walk a dog up on the roof so you don't have to leave the property. Pretty attractive in the Northeast with the snow. So that's certainly something we put there. And then common amenities up on the roof, and enjoy nice views of the river, you know, grills, business centers, things like that. So those are just some ideas of what we're looking to do with the structure itself. But that gives you a good idea of, you know, very early on stages of an elevation that we'd be looking to do to try to incorporate some of the existing characteristics, but also bring in some new characteristics, some more modern characteristics to blend with what's there, and inviting some new opportunities. So.
You're looking to buy that area to do that, to that location?
Yeah, that's what we have proposed at that location. Sure.
Sure. I think we, or at least I anyway, need to understand the distinction between public parking and private parking.
Mm-hmm.
The site plan. Maybe you could roll back to the parking plan that we looked at earlier, and you could tell us which of those spaces are open to the public.
Yeah, sure.
Which are private for the development.
Absolutely. So with the RFP, the intention that we interpreted was to develop this site with all of the site parking needs on site and not to bring anything more onto the city.
That would be private parking.
Private, exactly. So that was our initial stab at it. So that was our first proposal. So what was on, everything internal right now would be considered private per se, for residential tenants, for commercial visitors, for the retail, for office, things like that. All of the on-street parking would be public. So that's something we've added to it. What we're trying to do right now, and again, very early stages, we're trying to add some additional possible underground parking to another building that would be able to alleviate some of the needs that we would have for residential parking, to be able to keep that enclosed and possibly open up some surface parking on site for public use.
If you were to do that, would you be able to create a connection from that surface parking over to Bridge Street through your building? Or?
It wouldn't be through the building, but where we'd be able to do it is through the walkway going down to the riverfront. And so the walkway on the riverfront would connect over to Bridge, and then also sidewalks going through Durkee, carrying that over. But it's something that we're trying to accommodate. It's something that we early on weren't aware of the strong desire for. We got some really good comments on, and we're trying to do our best to try to accommodate some of those requests that we heard. Yeah.
Just to clarify, there would not be a vehicular connection, that would be.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. With the grade changes and whatnot, it'd be a little challenging.
How many parking spaces do you envisage underground?
So right now, what we propose, and I'll call Building 1 the corner of Bridge and Durkee, there's roughly 70 car parking underneath. So that would really meet a lot of the requirements we'd have for the residential units up above. And we're hoping that we might be able to add some onto what we'll call Building 2, where the farmers market would be.
Have you considered underground parking underneath the whole thing?
That's what we're looking at. It's very costly. It comes down to economics. But it's certainly something that we're trying to see if we can accommodate some more underground parking and have it make sense. But we heard the comments, so we're trying to gain some more public parking on site if we can.
You said this plan was no public parking, most of this will all be for the tenants?
Our original proposal was for that. We got some good feedback. We got the parking study that we were able to review and some suggestions as to try to add some additional parking on there. And so literally since last Friday till today, we added some more additional parking on the street, angled parking, which we thought was a great idea that came up in the parking study. And we're even trying to take it a step further to see what else we could add onto the site if possible.
But there is some parking for members of the public who want to go to some of the commercial properties.
Absolutely. A majority of the surface parking, we would say, behind what we would call Building 1, and then also coming down the connector to the river would be primarily for retail parking, for whether it be office users or people that want to visit any of the shops or restaurants or things like that that we proposed on the site.
And for what you're foreseeing as the
And farmers market,
here in the middle, to the left of that would service that.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Todd, could you show us where you propose the farmer's market?
Yeah. So the farmers market, we'll call this Building 2. Up on the corner, we have proposed roughly 3,000 square feet of commercial space. And really what we'd like to see is some kind of restaurant that can also take advantage of the farmers market area. The rest of the area going down towards the river, obviously there's a roof on there, but could be open on 3 sides is what we have proposed for the farmers market.
Can I ask you, how many public parking spots are we using on the
I think in the middle of the current 289. 289.
Is it possible to go to the financial document that's a part of it? Is that in there?
It's not in here, and quite honestly, we're at a concept stage to go through financials. Very rough estimates right now, so it's.
Can I ask a specific question?
Yeah, it's premature, but I mean in terms of details, but I'm happy to try to.
So I have one. So in this, there is a clarity there. The land itself will be purchased for $1 from the city of Plattsburgh, correct?
That's correct.
And then you will accept the $4 million grant fund from the state as part of the DRI.
That's earmarked for this site, correct?
Earmarked for the site, and then you'll bring about $2.5 million of your own capital to the plan, and then the rest will be generally borrowed.
It's actually been modified since then. That was a very preliminary number.
Okay.
So
Do you anticipate using new market tax credits?
We can. So new market tax credits, good point, can be used on the commercial side of things.
Yeah.
So we are interested in pursuing some of those. The market for them buying them on the backside has changed a little bit. Opportunity zone is something that's fairly new. The federal government introduced it, and it's coming out right now. We fit in the opportunity zone right now. We're working on a couple of other sites for opportunity zones. Certainly something we're going to look at here as well. So yes.
So have you thought about the possibility of a low-income tax credit as well to potentially provide some affordability into some of the apartments instead of doing them all at market rate? Provide a modicum of affordable units as part of those 174 units that you're adding to the area?
Yeah, 127, somewhere in that ballpark. The direction and the RFP that was given was for market rate. We do have experience doing low-income housing with tax credits. We feel that this area might be underserved with the market rate apartments. So we're comfortable with what we have proposed here right now, but it was something that we did consider. More market studies we did, and going through the RFP, it was looking for market rate based on what the city requirements were.
Do you want to mention your idea for the executive stay as well?
Oh yeah, good point. So one thing that I didn't touch on, and thank you for bringing that up. We own the franchise rights to a program called ExecuStay. So it's short-term furnished corporate housing. It's affiliated with Marriott. You get Marriott points. So we have proposed here roughly 10% of the units, so anywhere between 10 and 15 units would be used for furnished, almost like long-term hotels. We've gotten a number of requests over the last 12 months for the Plattsburgh market. We feel it's a great opportunity for professors, for traveling nurses. It could be somebody that's here for 30 days, 90 days, up to a year even. So something that we're excited and an opportunity that we could bring this to this location. So thank you for bringing that up.
When you proposed all the certain designated areas for the retail and for the residential, I'm hoping and assuming that you do a lot of research into the actual need for all this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And is there anywhere we can see?
So yes, so market studies we do internally, and then as we get further along, we engage different companies to do, national companies that do further market studies.
Does this include going out and seeing who's actually maybe free and interested?
Yeah, so even like a Survey Monkey, we've discussed that, even going out to employees of the county, the school. It will be, absolutely. As we get further along, we don't want to get too far of ourselves. We know that other things might be considered for this site. We're really excited about the opportunity to be considered, but as we get further along, it also helps us adjust where the market rates could be for pricing, for the size of units, of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom. Is there more retail, more food and beverage needs, which would help us say we need grease traps in certain locations and different ventilation. So great points, and that's certainly something that we do as we get further along.
In presentations to the councilors last Friday, you said that you were going to be researching how to serve the public with local leases, regional leases, and national leases.
Absolutely. So one of our other entities is Coldwell Banker Commercial. It's a real estate brokerage company. So what we would do here when we go out to market for a site like this, we love a cross-section of national tenants if they're out there, regional and local. Ideally for us is a great blend between them all. Some local presence, a local restaurant. It could be a Charles Schwab type of tenant, a national that could have some services downtown and bring some office use. Love retail, love services like a drop-off dry cleaner and things like that. So we look for things that are going to be benefiting the existing area, as well as people that are going to live there, and hopefully bring new jobs and draw more people to the downtown location.
So in your design, did you have to be mindful about, qualifiers from the governor in regards to grant money? This had to be designed within the parameters of the national grant. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, and actually we've had some good conversations with, there's several state agencies involved in it, which always makes things a little bit brighter. We are having continuing conversations with them about what the grants could be applicable for. Obviously, for this project to make sense financially, the grant is critical to it. It's an expensive construction that we have proposed here, a development, and so that money is key to doing this site. So really maximizing what's available is going to be key to it.
And just in regards to that, what were the strings attached? What did you have to satisfy for New York State?
Yeah, so we're still not even there yet. So it's earmarked for some things like infrastructure and improvements to the site themselves. So I don't think they're going to give me money to build a pool, but for site improvements, for parking on site, for structure, things like that. That's what we're working through. And then anytime there's state funds available, there's always some things that go with it. Prevailing wage is something that we're working through right now. If there's any contractor requirements that we're going to need, we're going to work through. And it's still kind of gray, so they want to see a more specific proposal, even more than what we have right now. We can't get there yet until we get to the next couple of steps, hopefully with the city. But we have open dialogue with several of the agencies. Yep.
What, if any, collaboration conversations was done between the city and county concerning the parking that's being lost directly across from social services? There's roughly just shy of 200 employees that work there that utilize the parking where your proposed building 2 is going to be, and that parking area. And currently, the federal building that's on the very corner utilizes the parking garage as well as some of the county employees that work across the street. So where are they supposed to park when all this happens?
Yeah, I unfortunately I can't really talk about that, or I can't talk to that, I should say. We're proposing
I'll
to,
answer that.
yeah.
That's part of the city's larger parking plan, and the parking advisory committee was put together. We added a member from the county legislative office to address those particular concerns, and he should be at the first meeting on Tuesday.
So, quick follow-up, the farmer's market area that's proposed, do you have an operating plan for what revenue you need to see from that area?
We don't. So we understand there's limited funds paid for what's being used right now. So the next steps would be to meet with members that are associated with the farmers market to see what their needs are, see if we can help it expand. Certainly in the financials and any financials we do, we're not going to underrate it as a big income source, if any. It's really a public benefit and something that's currently there that we're trying to incorporate onto the development. So we're not looking to put a strain on the existing market. We want it to thrive.
You also mentioned that when you met with the councilors on Friday, that actually the undercover space for the farmers market that's being proposed is considerably larger than the undercover.
Yeah, so we're roughly 7,500 square feet for farmers market is what we have proposed right now. A couple of ideas that we did have kicked around for that is farmers market meets several Saturdays over the course of good weather. There's a lot of other times that, and Wednesdays, yep. But there's a lot of other times that the space wouldn't not necessarily be in use, so we wanted to, talk to the public, see what other uses might be of benefit. If we get a restaurant, we'd love to use it for outdoor dining possibly, for any receptions or parties that anybody would look to do.
Is it even going to be all closed in, or is it going to be open on 3 sides? Is that what I'm understanding?
Details aren't worked out yet, and that's something that we look forward to dialogue with the members that would give us some feedback as to what they're looking for, and we welcome that. So. Yeah, some overhead doors that can be open and closed. It's just some ideas we've had. Yeah.
And just one more quick thing on the financial plan. I noticed that you're potentially seeking a pilot, which would potentially be below the market in what the actual valuation of the facility is for property tax values.
Right.
So, one of the things that I know the community's been interested in is making sure that if we do this process where there is the city gives up all this parking and gives up the space for no revenue, for no cost, that at least there is some, money being put back in to the city for it. And
understood.
So can you give us an idea of what your pilot expectations are?
Yeah, so again, early on, great question, and something that we got some feedback on there earlier. A pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes, and typically what that does is you work with the IDA, local IDA. Typically it's needed for projects like this and a lot of development projects, and asks for some tax relief early on in the process, and then it ramps up till you get the full stable tax value. And in turn you get some public benefit for that. Public benefit for this site could be farmers market, riverfront development, things like that. As we get further along in that process, the public's going to have opportunities to review and go through actual true numbers through the IDA. The IDA does require public hearings for that, and real numbers, side-by-side analysis of the benefits and whatnot would be proposed at that time. One thing that's a little bit different about this site versus some others that we typically ask for pilots for, this site's typically not drawing any taxes, and it does have some kind of expenses burdened onto the city in terms of snow removal, security, lighting, things like that. So some of that would be coming off. It would be going into tax records, and over time it would ramp up to full tax value. But again, that's comments that in conversation we could have further on in another public forum.
In reference to the farmers market area, I'm just looking at what you proposed there for parking spaces, and we're using a lot more of that on Saturdays than what's shown there. And right now, from what I can see, Beverly handles the vendors in terms of spaces, not the customers.
Okay. Yeah, good comment. We're trying to do our best to accommodate some needs that are on site, and also do the balancing act for new development and investment. So again, we're open to discussions and love getting feedback, and if we can incorporate some of the ideas, we're certainly welcome to doing so.
Yeah, because we do outside vendors.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So that's why we like to put the parking on both sides, and we're hoping that there's an opportunity for some drive-in opportunities to bring trucks right underneath, and park there as well. And just some ideas that we have, but love to hear your feedback. I know you were on
I'm
the
the
original
manager
tour.
of the
Yeah,
market.
yeah. I got an opportunity to meet you when we did the tour.
President.
Yeah, good. So it's all good. So we welcome conversations, probably a more intimate forum than this to go through details of what you're looking for, and if we can incorporate them, that's great. Sorry.
Yes, I have 2 items, please.
Yeah.
I was looking at the lower right-hand corner of the property.
Mhm.
You're showing pavement, I mean, not pavement, but concrete sidewalk of some nature. Is there just a possibility of having more green space there to connect the green space across the way, going over the metal
Yeah.
development? Secondly, we had mentioned that 127 market rate apartments. Did you do a study of that the city needs that many more units? Or?
It's a number that we're comfortable with in terms of absorption from our initial market studies that we do internally. We have different programs and things like that that we go off of, so we're comfortable with that. In terms of
concerned with the local developers that are developing last year 100 apartments.
Yeah, I've seen some of the projects and they're great. And so we also developed like garden style apartments, so which they did a beautiful job on some of the new projects that we saw. This just brings something different, so it's a different type of product than what we see that's new to the marketplace, more of an urban location, city feel, different types of amenities. So I think it could blend very nicely with what's already proposed out there or being built. First question about Riverfront. There's another grant that's associated with that the city's working through directly. We just put some sketches on there of things that we thought might work well. We're going to work directly if we get further with Saratoga Associates, who's the city's consultant on there, as well as our design team, to make sure that it's a seamless transition for whatever it is that's proposed or decided to do down there. We just want to put something in there. Sir.
Are you proposing a traffic light at the corner of Bridge and Durkee?
We're not.
Okay, because the way the parallel parking looks, you know, the coming up Bridge Street on a Thursday or a Friday, that's a real bottleneck that is difficult to negotiate even with parallel parking. And it seems like you gained, at least from the drawing, gained the diagonal parking at least partially from the width of the road, not the footprint of the parking lot. And that would even add.
Yeah, it's actually a combination of two. One did go into the street right away a little bit, right? Turner, if I'm speaking properly.
Yeah, so it's really astute comment. We actually had a short conversation exactly about this. It's a little bit of that give and take. You know, like the parking study recommends trying to reroute a lot of the truck traffic off of Bridge Street to relieve some of that bottleneck. And again, this is not the final solution.
Yeah.
We noticed that. That's really astute comment. So I think, you know, largely what this represents, you know, was Brian's willingness to take in the comment and try to address it, and not be part of the problem, but be part of the solution, and work with the folks. But it's a really good comment. It would have to be looked at much more closely.
Okay.
Another question on the corner here, what's the elevation of that building supposed to be? The top of it?
The corner of Bridge and Durkee?
Yep.
It's right here. This is the corner.
Thank you. Sorry.
4 stories with a mezzanine level.
Okay, can I ask Rochelle, was there at one time the developer who had the air rights on that piece of property when it sold down? Zabowski?
Arvay was at the other end. It was at the other end, where the Gateway building is.
No. He had
I was a part of that discussion when it was as high as 13 stories by a post.
13?
Yeah.
I didn't know what the elevation of his, he had.
You got me nervous when I heard air rights, so. I'm just gonna leave. Yeah.
Thank you, John.
I'm just curious why this isn't being considered for the lot down by the marina as opposed to this upper lot.
This is what the RFP went out for, so we responded to the request for proposal that went out. So happy to look at the other lot too, but this is what we went after. And we really like the location. We love the characteristics. Again, urban redevelopment, we like an awful lot, and waterfront. We have probably 1,000 residential units on the water right now on different rivers throughout upstate New York. We love it. Something that's important to us. And then downtown mixed use is something that we really feel is something that's needed in a lot of the cities in upstate New York, which is something that we like about this site.
Space in the lot down there is frequently available, and this lot is always packed. So it's gonna be a very good fit. And you said it's 289 spaces that we lose?
Correct. I believe that's correct.
That's how many are total there.
That's how many are currently there now.
With access to the parking garage also, that is some public spaces.
That's already pretty much utilized, so by the people that work in that building on the corner. It's full, I work down there. It's
But
full
there is
every
some-
day.
Hopefully you guys can attend the meeting on
Oh, I plan
Tuesday.
to. We're gonna be there.
Good.
Todd, you mentioned that a lot of these are needed in, or you see a lot of need for mixed-use buildings in cities in upstate New York. I see in this proposal you've included some like the Hamlet at Saratoga Springs. Can you tell us how those projects are doing? Are they being successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So Saratoga Springs is a thriving upstate city, one of the ones that are doing better. The particular location, the first one that we did in Saratoga Springs, is actually on the east side of town. It's actually a side of town where nothing's happening there. We were kind of a pioneer to extend over there on a site that's sat vacant for a number of years. People thought it was a dirty site. It was an old gas station. Went through a cleanup. We ended up doing a mixed-use development over there that included 145 residential units and roughly 60,000 square feet of commercial and office space. We just completed our last phase of that a couple months ago. But since then, actually spurred additional new investments into that side of town where everybody thought we were kind of crazy for going over there. And a lot of exciting new opportunities where it's really thriving now. Rentals are great. Retail and office is really expanding to the marketplace.
So I just had a quick question for clarification. Where's Matt?
Right here, Joe.
What is the potential for the number of parking spaces where Falls National Bank is now? And, just thinking about that, well, do you know the number of potential?
It depends on any arrangements we have with adjoining property owners.
As many as
170.
And I just, I can't help but think anytime I go to Burlington or like Placidus Internet Lake, oftentimes you have to walk a block to get to where you need to go. And I think that that's just going to be something that's probably going to have to evolve and happen in Plattsburgh, is people are going to have to realize that you may have to walk a block to get to places where you need to go. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
Appreciate that.
Todd,
Yeah.
also, you mentioned your project in Saratoga. I also know the project that you in downtown Schenectady, which is probably even more similar to this project than the one in Saratoga.
Yeah, so we're under construction in a project in the Schenectady market right now, in an area that's somewhat of a transition area. It's an up-and-coming area of the city, but again, we're probably one of the early developers on to recognize the opportunity. Another challenging site in terms of very risky, so it's really a true public-private partnership where there are city, county, and state benefits that had to go along in order for us to take the leap of faith with it. We're very excited about it. It's 120 or so apartments, 12,000 square feet of commercial space, and some internal parking. Very similar to this, but it's, we've provided references for, city, state, county officials and things, IDA officials that we've worked with. And I think we work very nicely on trying to get projects like this off the ground where others might not see the potential. Thanks.
If I may?
Yep.
Would the addition of another level of parking, surface parking that's now there, be a deal breaker for this project?
Financially, yes. But what we're trying to do is we have one level underneath what we call Building 1. We're trying to get a partial level on Building 2 and make it, yeah, no, but what that does is that frees up surface parking that we might be able to turn back over to public parking. So our goal is if we can add a little bit more internal parking to accommodate the needs for the potential residents there, some of the surface parking that's there could potentially become public. And again, can't commit to it yet, but it is something that we're trying to accomplish. I just don't know if we can, but we'd like to.
I realize that, what Josh is saying earlier, there may become, a need to walk a little further for a certain I could see it all. It's a lot. You gotta look at it in terms of level of service, parking, some of the, the city hall place, businesses and so forth, and Bridge Street businesses too. When you talk about, the Glens Falls National Bank, I think you're up to a level E parking service, getting up to 1,000 feet or so. Walk, and that's a little bit, a little bit more than a block. Wondering how you can incorporate more public parking.
We're trying. I mean, so again, we started with just trying to self-contain what we had proposed because that was the direction that we thought we had. Heard a lot of, and it sounds that way, and I know the city's working really hard to accommodate in different areas, but if we could also try to, we also know there's a lot of local businesses right around there too. It doesn't do us any good if those businesses don't thrive. It's a benefit for this development when they thrive as well. Local landlords do. If they have apartments, we want them to do well, just like we want to hopefully do well there. So if we could add parking, it helps our neighboring businesses and owners. It's a benefit to us as well. So it's a win-win in our eyes.
Turner,
is it possible for you to consider the financial impact of removal of just one floor of the apartments? If you have a reduction in the total number of units, which would reduce the total number of required parking spaces, so therefore you can push more over to public use. It might impact your overall revenue plan, but that could also lower your overall capital needs, which might make the whole, site.
We did. So a couple of things. We have our own way of interpreting development sites. One thing I probably neglected to reference about our company is we're a development company, we're a brokerage company, we're a management company. So if this gets built, we oversee construction. After it's built, hopefully we lease it. After it's leased, we stand and manage it. We don't leave. We employ people. We'd have an on-site manager, leasing person, maintenance staff, all with an office on site. When you reduce density, outside the financial model, in terms of the numbers, unfortunately didn't work. But if you did, you get to the point where you can't have full-time staff on site anymore. And so what that hurts us is the quality control, which is very important to us. Having on-site management's key to us and the success, and make sure we can give the quality to our tenants. Once we get on, this is probably the smallest amount of units we can actually support by having full-time staff on place, and that's important for a site like this for us. So, outside of the financial model, that's a business decision. Yep.
Turner, I know the angled parking was put in since last Friday. Do we know how many more spots that adds in on that diagram compared to what is currently on Bridge and Durkee Street on as far as parallel parking?
So I don't have a hard number for you. What's shown there for off-street parking is 67 spaces, and I can tell you that roughly, by having the parallel, you're roughly doubling, or by having the angle, you're roughly doubling the number from the parking, just the way the math goes for the way the parking space. So that's just a quick way. I don't have a hard number for you.
But again, regarding the issue of parking overall, there's a parking study and a developing parking plan. And all of these factors and all of these needs is our goal as a city, I would hope, to create a plan and to institute the amount of parking that will serve the community. So, it's difficult to say exactly what the entire plan is at this point. It's developing. And so hopefully we'll have public input into that process. But that is, I know it's an integrated issue, but it's also, in a sense, a separate issue.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think, we sort of came to this having read and understood all that, and came with the attitude of we don't want to be the problem, we want to be part of the solution, and that's what we're trying to do.
Where is the retail space going that's going to be up?
Yeah, so we'll call building 1 the whole front of Durkee Street.
Yeah.
And then building 2 the corner. So that corner area and everything behind it would be proposed right now for a farmer's market. So we think that'd be a great spot for a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, will you, who decides what retailers go in there?
The market tells us. So we go out and we market it to national, regional, local. And then from there we figure out who's interested. Hopefully there's a lot of interest. And then you pick and choose possibly who's the best fit for the development. And obviously financial strength and experience and stuff like that plays, a part in it as well. So.
you have a range yet for proposed square footage costs for leasing for both the commercial spaces and the apartments? As opposed to what the rates are now, and are they competitive?
Yeah, so we're going to continue to do market studies based on rental rates. We actually underwrote it and did some quick pro formas on there. Commercial space is a little trickier because it depends upon fit up and needs and uses and things like that, but we're comfortable with where the market is in terms of being able to do new construction for that. For the apartments, square footages range from a 1-bedroom, maybe 750 square feet, up into 3-bedroom units or potentially duplexes, which could get much larger than that. Rental rates, 1-bedrooms, the smaller ones would start probably just over $1,000 and work their way up depending upon amenities, uses, things like that. When we talk about rents, a couple of things to keep in mind. We do include some, cable and internet is part of our rental package. Fitness facilities are typically included, so things where you can drop your gym membership possibly, or you don't have to pay that big Time Warner or Charter or Spectrum bill. Things like that, business centers, things like that, where you might be able to work from home and have a workstation or something in a common area. So we try to balance it out that way. And, but it's early on, but the market will kind of dictate if we should be a little higher, a little lower, and but we can afford to charge.
So in theory, I'm a concerned taxpayer paying school tax.
Yeah.
So in theory, if I'm understanding, this is private. So everything here is going to be responsible for paying the taxes, and it's not going to negatively
Correct.
impact me as
Right.
a taxpayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There shouldn't be additional burden put on the tax base.
Okay, cool.
Is the goal.
And something taken off because we're not maintaining that lot anymore.
So you're hoping to do that. You're also hoping to generate sales tax by some new businesses that might be there. You're also bringing in a bunch of new potential residents to the area that can go to existing retailers, restaurants, things like that hopefully increase their revenues. So hopefully there's a lot of positives. If there's not, we all made a big mistake. but we're not looking at that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
In addition to the parking concern, a big concern is also accessibility to the natural resources of the river. And that kind of ties in with parking needs that you need. Is there any way to get some more green space to sort of tie? I know in the streetscapes committee that we've been talking about, there's the sewage line, egress, which cannot be developed on.
Right.
So turning that into more of like a park-like place, which is where you have a lot of parking there.
Right.
I know you could get some more.
Yeah.
Ideally, there could be underground parking underneath the whole structure. But,
Yeah. Good comments. So you toe the balance of parking, green space, amenities, and you hear both, and you try to blend it all in together. So when we think about green space amenities, though it might not be green, we're hoping that the farmers market hits some of that requirement. The connectability from coming down to the park across the street, coming down to the waterfront. That's a walkway. I mean, right now we have those, brick pavers shown on a rendering. Could that be green grass pavers or something like that to soften the feel? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm picturing it's like if it could be as wide as all that parking there. I mean, do you ever put roof deck pools in your places? Because that would free up a lot of that ground use there.
Yeah, financially it's very expensive, so rents would all of a sudden go through the roof to do something like that, unfortunately.
More than the ground level.
Yeah. Rooftop green areas, though, we talked about a pet area. That's a rooftop green area. Rooftop gardens we do an awful lot of. We're going to get into, stormwater, possible design. Could there be rooftop green areas as well? Again, we're talking about probably more private for the actual residents there,
right,
but we're cognizant of those things.
Ground space
yeah.
for the public.
Right.
But something to keep in mind is that green space that is shown, that will be part of a separate initiative, is currently absent.
Right.
So we're gaining, even though, I have to admit, Danielle, I was hoping for more green space, public space as well. But then I thought, that is not accessible. That access to the riverfront is not currently accessible with the existing structure. So we're gaining. And then there's that connectivity to hopefully bicycle paths and so forth in this area, river trail as well.
Yeah, multi-use path it's great.
Would you potentially be amenable to a covenant that required an extremely low rental fee for any of the civic center area use for the duration of your property?
Yeah, so I great comment. So pilot you brought up earlier, you know, public benefit, that's certainly an area that we want to focus on for public benefit. And so in doing so, it's not going to be market rate. You know, it's something that's got to benefit everybody. So green space, yeah, it might not be green, but hopefully it's a common area, civic area that can be enjoyed by multiple. So yeah, it's certainly something that we're thinking about along the same lines. Yep.
I don't know this at all, but I remember seeing something one time where they were gonna try to have access to the river for kayaks, boating, and I don't know if that's very expensive. I know there's a big, really big drought there. So is that something that was ever considered?
So there's another design that's being done for Saranac River. Yeah, and this water moves pretty good. So I don't know if this is the right spot. I'm all for it if it can be done, because I would love to do it. Grade's going down, I think, would be challenging, but it's right. Yeah, it's right. There's something proposed. Yeah. Right.
One more comment. Do you conform at all zoning for the district?
So this is what's in what's called a planned unit development district, and so really not yet. So in terms of acreage for a PUD, planned unit development, we qualify for that. We have to go through the process with city and planning to go through all the approval processes for site plan and for area uses and things like that. So we're not there yet. Yeah, right. No, not seeking variances, but I'm just saying it's called a planned unit development. So what we have proposed right here, we feel fits within the guidelines of that planned unit development, but we still have to go through the approval process. Yep.
The building to the west, where I have this, has, I think now 4 restaurants, at one time 5. Those restaurants accept deliveries from Derby Street. Now, I know from what I speak, it's my office, it's on the ground level has a window facing Derby Street.
Yeah.
And every single day, there are delivery trucks. Today, a very large one, Cisco, servicing those restaurants. There's also garbage collection. And when the spaces that are parallel to Derby Street on the west side have cars, which is almost all of them, the delivery trucks double park. And I look at the plan, and those parallel parked cars are not going to be able to get out when there's a double park semi-truck there. And it's not a once-off, maybe once in a while. It's every single day, multiple times a day. There's also garbage collection that goes on in the alley next to the old Merkles and the dumpster behind one of those. So there's a lot of activity in that regard. And I'm wondering, does this even work with respect to that? And does your design incorporate garbage collection for the residential as well as delivery? You talked about restaurants several times.
Right.
That just exacerbates the problem. So.
Great comments. So again, we look at this early on in design. We try to for anything we would do in here, self-contained. So it would include being able to have garbage pickup come into the site, pick up, not be on the street. For deliveries, we purposely put parking behind the commercial areas. So you can pull in and delivery would come from the back. And we also restrict times in a lot of our mixed-use properties, urban locations, limited parking, very tight locations to when you can get deliveries. So we work with the tenants as to when they can accept their deliveries. We work with sanitation companies to when they can pick up and take off. And if they don't fit with those requirements, they can't deliver to our tenants. So we work closely with our tenants and residents. Urban locations are challenged. Yeah, right. And so that's the only thing we can control. Yeah.
I mean, it's somewhat problematic right now.
Yeah. Right.
Also, it creates a hazard for pedestrians as they're crossing deliveries. The furniture store, gets deliveries that take time to unload, all understandable.
Yeah.
And so I really think that in addition to the other parking issues that have to be addressed, that has to be addressed because you know, those group of buildings and those businesses that are established are going to continue to need those services.
Yeah.
I was wondering about access for disabled, like angle parking. You're going to need 2 spots for people like getting out of the van or whatever
Sure.
for wheelchair. So has that been put into this? Spots?
Some of the good comments we received about parking we received on Friday. For today's meeting, we tried to do our best to put some parking, showed ankle parking. Certainly handicap requirements, ADA requirements are all things that we would have to abide by. Yeah, obviously something
We
that
have them on site, because that was part of the original.
close,
RFP,
and then
so
inside.
We have not considered them on the outside.
Right. But certainly something to adhere to.
Probably like an entire can of worms. But how many retail spaces did you say you were getting?
We don't know. What we have proposed right now is around 13,000 square feet. So it could be 2, it could be 8, depending upon the need. So we try to design, you know, an open vanilla box and let the market kind of tell us the sizes. We typically try not to build the walls until the tenant says, you know, 2,000, 3,000.
Well, the reason I say it is because on Margaret Street alone, let's be honest, everybody, the turnaround for those spaces up there is, you know, it's significant at times. Places come in, they go.
Sure.
So, I mean, how confident could you be that those are going to be filled long-term anymore than the ones on Market Street are?
The market tells us. So we do our best and try to doing our due diligence prior to accepting a tenant. You know, financially, what's your success rate going to be? Unfortunately, it's not a science. It's a risk sometimes, and we deal with that at commercial properties we have all throughout upstate New York. Some make it, unfortunately, some don't, and that's just the nature of a competitive marketplace. So we hope they all stay for a long time. It's good for everybody, but we know that's not always true.
They all wish that.
Yeah, I know, everybody does, yeah.
I realize this is a, you know, concept, and my personal opinion is that it's terrific.
Thank you.
That, it's exciting to think that something like this would happen in Plattsburgh. I would encourage you to keep going forward, and I think in the end it would be terrific.
Thank you.
It'll bring people here. There'll be eventually, not initially, but eventually there'll be a tax base. It'll be added to the city. And then Josh, I guess, as Josh said, that's what happens when you have development. Sometimes parking is a little hard, but that's kind of good news. That means there's a lot of people coming.
Right.
So, you know, you have revenue for the restaurants and whatnot. So I think the walkway along the river is very nice compared to what's there now. And that'll bring people to the city, I'm sure. And I know you gotta accommodate the farmer's market and whatnot, and I'm supportive of that as well, but I just encourage you and everybody, just keep going, because this could be terrific for Plattsburgh.
Thank you. That's our thoughts as well.
You
So
know, another
we hope so.
comment, when I saw that Oakwood was involved, or they might be, I mean, there was a real, back in the 80s and 90s, if you wanted to make money in real estate, you followed Marriott or Oakwood around,
Right.
you know, that, so the fact that they might be involved is, I think, reinforcement that this has potential and that there's a market for what you're trying to do. So.
Thank you.
And just in regards to the farmer's market, you know, new construction, it's been discussed, but it could afford the possibility of a year-round market. It could completely expand accessibility to produce and all of the local arts and crafts and goods that we have, which I see as a huge win.
Absolutely, yeah.
In relationship to the farmer's market, I thought a great site would be across from the co-op where the green space is, to expand it into that end of the parking lot and have some area parking around there. I think that a year-round spot for the farmer's market is really important. Most cities have a year-round farmer's market. It's a real attraction now, and that would be an attraction to your tenants because a lot of people want natural produce. And the other thing is, if you could make it a year-round venue, then you could have crafts and you could have people as a go-to place for downtown Plattsburgh. I know it's not part of your development or scope, but I thought another great place for a farmer's market would be the building that's not been abandoned that needs repair on the roof.
to work with the city maybe, that's on the corner of Marion and Brinkerhoff. It's right across from the Strand. And I know that's out of your scope, but that's what I thought would be perfect. The other thing that I think has already been expressed, I'm sorry I'm late, is that I know that you're gonna say, as a developer, that underground parking other than that one building is prohibitive as far as financial constraints. But I think that that's something that we really need to look at, because I think that the parking that's proposed is insufficient for both the residents and what we hope to grow as a downtown go-to community. There's a lot of people that use the boat docks that come in, that would hopefully come into downtown Plattsburgh. And, you know, with shops and et cetera, I think that's a problem. So those are, I know that past Bridge Street is not your concern either, it's just a dirty street, but that's one of my major concerns.
All good points, thank you. Well taken.
Yeah, have a long range, 3 to 5 years before this could materialize, or be done in 6 months?
Yeah, obviously a lot of moving parts early on in the stages, working through governmental approvals, working through grants, construction, DEC, cleanup issues, getting that all cleaned up, which I think we're there. You know, it's tough to put a number on there. If construction, you know, if it was all built at the same time, which it could be, you know, 18, 20 months, somewhere in that ballpark is probably a pretty good number. Not barring anything crazy weather, things like that, but I think that's a pretty conservative build-out amount of time.
Yeah, the overall projected cost of the whole thing on your part?
Yeah, I mean, we have a ballpark number. I hate talking numbers this early on because most likely I'm going to be 30% low. But it's a lot. I mean, we're over 20 million bucks on a site like this, you know. And
it's more than the 10 million that everybody thinks is there.
Yeah, I would love it to be that. Yeah, yeah, yep.
Will the parking lot, okay, you started, obviously you know where the farmer's market building is. Is it non-workable while you're working on that? I mean, can we stay open while you're working?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that it's love to accommodate anything that we can, and I'm sure we can work with the city about temporary locations. It would have to be shut down for a period of time. The duration, I don't know. I don't know the phasing of construction yet. We're dealing with grants. The state may require everything to be done at once, which is kind of the direction they told us through our last conversation, all the site work to be done at once. So it's premature. We want it to be safe. I don't want pedestrians coming through a construction zone, so that's going to be important, but early on, but anything we can do to help accommodate, and we'd work with you.
Yeah, the city can certainly work to make sure you guys are accommodated.
Sure.
I think it's a great idea, but I would like to see you push very hard for a lot more underground parking. I've seen this happen with many other places, and it really works out fine.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it just, you hate talking about economics because everybody thinks you make a ton of money on these things, and hopefully you make something, but it does come down to economics, and if you can make the math work. And so we're able to get it in the first building, and the math works okay. We're trying to accommodate some on the second building, and hopefully we can make it work with the design that Steve's working on right now, and we put some construction numbers to it, and hopefully we can do it, and then free up some more parking for public.
Sir, have you looked at one-way anywhere in this? One-way?
One-way traffic?
Yeah.
So,
have you looked at that at all?
like on Durkee, the bridge?
Yeah, that little piece of bridge with that parallel parking, that looks pretty small.
Yeah, so that's not something that we would make a determination on, but it's conversations that can come up through the approval. It's state, county, city, all have a say in things like that, but it's not something that we've looked at as of yet.
And just for your information, trucks like Cisco deliver all over the city and double park all over, especially Margaret.
Right.
Trust me, it's just not on Durkee.
Yeah, no, and
so,
I know.
You know, that's all over.
Yep.
You mentioned plan unit development. Does that require 5 days?
If
They did, but the city recently completed a change to its zoning law to allow for, in the central business district, a minimum acreage of 3 acres. 3 for 15 days.
Do you have a rough concept of how much disruption there's going to be and how long it'll take to finish the project? I'm thinking of traffic, trucks coming in and out. Like you talked about parking spaces, but what about the traffic flow?
Yeah, so part of the drawings that would be done further on, it'll include construction design, construction entrances, ingress, egress. I think the state and the grant may dictate what gets done when. And I'm thinking based on initial conversations that they want all the infrastructure and site work done at once.
Okay.
So,
So do you envision much rerouting of traffic or street sweeping along Toronto?
I don't think so. I don't think we would need to. We've done downtown locations like this before. We would obviously we'd have a controlled construction entrance and exit, so it wouldn't be open. But I don't think there'd be any need for, I mean, maybe temporarily to accept a large delivery if there was such a thing. But I don't think there's a need for closing down roads on a regular basis. Yeah.
What type of construction?
Steve, it's 5A?
Yeah, 5A frame.
Right.
So stick built?
Yep.
Yeah, stick built, right.
Can I ask a random question? What is your aisle width?
Do you know if the aisle width is proposed?
Honestly, I think they're currently shown at 20, 20, 20, so I think it's a 16 from out to out, which
yeah.
maybe 8.
You know, that's 26 requirements.
26 is required in the city.
I did read that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. I don't want to lose parking.
Would there be a possibility of working with the city if, as the parking plan develops, if the city can find additional parking elsewhere to sort of free up more green space in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to it, absolutely.
Was there a consideration of perhaps the current farmer's market building where it is, where some of that green space is? Was there any consideration of just revitalizing that building to free up more of the parking in that area? And your talk of a restaurant, there is a perfectly empty restaurant space right in the federal government building that's currently not being utilized, and it's a beautiful space. So I'm not sure what the feasibility of a restaurant being in the farmer's market building would be.
Yeah, just an idea. Thought it'd be a nice mix for mixed use. We like food and beverage uses sometimes for mixed use.
But was it considered just to leave it where it is and maybe reconstruct it?
No.
Like remodel it? No?
So I know that underground parking, you're still having an issue with finances, but as you know, parking is really a big problem. So a parking garage with a green roof, I mean, how much of the construction, I don't see any of that is environmentally, you know, encouraging or positive, because there's a lot of runoff. Obviously, the engineer will have to approve it, but what I see is potential problems for the river and the environment, but also we're losing a lot of parking. So if you're going to try to do underground parking for the first building, you know, I don't understand why you're not doing above ground if you can't do underground parking in the other areas. And the other concern I have is the L shape and then the squares within. Could you explain that a little bit better to me, because I came late and I apologize, but there's 3 squares within the yellow L's. What is that whole space is concrete? It's all buildings?
Touch base on what you had shadowed up on the roof. Is that mezzanine areas?
Yeah, those are rooftop mezzanines, part of the units. It's also for access to some of the roof amenities, so there's probably going to be a combination of some green roof features that you're mentioning as part of how we handle the amenity space. There'll be some fire pits for Todd Company, other amenities on the roof,
So are all the roofs going to be green?
A portion of it will do what's practical in terms of handling stormwater management. We haven't really figured that out yet. So it'll be a combination of features.
You know that in most downtowns, especially now with this development, we're losing a lot of green space, and the rooftop green is not only a benefit to the environment and runoff, but it's a benefit for your tenants.
Right.
So I encourage you to incorporate more green space on the roofs.
Sure.
And if you're still, having that financial impasse with underground, which I really would hope that you would do more underground parking, then a parking garage, most cities in downtown are now doing parking garages because you need to have more parking. That's the problem when development happens, is that we don't foresee the future often of insufficient parking for even the tenants. And I see this design as a potential problem with exacerbating the parking insufficiency in Plattsburgh.
Yeah, I think this whole concept is a great step in the right direction. I talked a lot about sustainable lifestyle. When we design projects, we do a lot of mixed-use multifamily and senior housing around the country. And I think people, you know, when they talk about sustainability, it's easy to overlook the impact of your lifestyle on that. I try to apply what I preach to what I practice. I live downtown in Burlington on Battery Street, you probably know where that is. Corner of Main Street and Battery. I live above my office, so I have a very short commute. And we sold our 3-bedroom house in Shelburne about 5 years ago. Kids are grown and out of college, of course. And we're down to 1 car now. We use the car share option in Burlington. It works great for us. And I think part of what this creates is an opportunity for people to embrace that kind of simplified lifestyle, if you will. So I hear a lot about dependence on the car. I think this is going to be a catalyst to maybe change some of that mindset. The gentleman here, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I was going to ask you if you were thinking of living here to help your walking circumstance, you know, parking up there. But I have to tell you, that's real. And there's more people that are doing the same thing now where we live on Battery Street in Burlington. There's kind of a neighborhood community that's developed. We get together and have parties together, meals together, etc. We love having a walkable circumstance. So I think it's, until you experience that, it's a bit hard to really appreciate how that translates, but believe me, it's very real. And I've lost a little bit of the spare tire too, by the way, walking, so.
I'm an active person. I'm avid believer in trying to have bikes and walkability.
Oh, yeah,
I think a problem that we're not seeing is that Plattsburgh's not there yet.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that if you look at our downtown, even 10 years, 5 years after you build this project, people are going to have to rely on their cars. Most people in downtown that would live downtown or that come to downtown are going to still need their cars to get groceries, to go and do other things. And I think that it's a nice hope, but I think it's a false hope to not build an infrastructure and sufficient parking within this, you know, design, because that could be terrific in the future. And then those parking spaces, maybe in the future, instead of your tenants needing them, maybe you rent them out to local businesses. I don't know, but to initially hope for that and build a project with insufficient parking is a problem. And I agree with a lot of people. Green space, I'm really disappointed in the lack of green space. And I really encourage you to think outside the box for the farmers market. I think that location is a disservice to the design. And I think that we could work on some other locations for permanent space.
Those are good points. We actually are thinking out of the box literally for how the farmers market could function. If it's an open, flexible type space on a year-round basis. So we appreciate your comments. They're good comments.
What do you plan on putting the bike paths? Is that your thoughts?
So the multi-use path that's shown down below on the river is part of another project. Saratoga Associates is doing a design for that. So we just put something in there that we thought might be a nice idea, but we're going to work closely with them on the design and how we can tie them all together.
It's kind of a wide, broad question. Would you be amenable to paying the city for the property so that the city could use the dollars that you give them to move the farmer's market somewhere else in the city, and then you would not be issued a pilot because you wouldn't have 7,800 square foot set aside for Civic Center. Instead, the city would use that money that you paid for the property to build a farmer's market somewhere else in the city?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that part of our proposal, so it wasn't something that we considered with our proposal.
But it's potentially amenable to some solution like that. Therefore, you wouldn't be given a pilot. Instead, you pay the full.
It wouldn't work without a pilot.
It won't work without a pilot, even if you don't have to give up that square footage in that area that's a commercial area.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
If I may comment, I would encourage the planning board to consider inclusion of bicycle paths, bicycle lanes along Durkee and City Hall because we're being reconstructed. I don't know that that connection shown at the bridge is going to work for a bicycle. I think those are stairs.
Yeah.
regarding the parallel parking again, on the west side of your building one. Do you envision that as short-term parking, 2-hour parking, 15-minute parking, and I don't see any handicap. None of those are.
Yeah, I don't know if you missed the comment before about the ADA requirement. It's certainly something it's public parking, so we work with the city on the requirements for ADA compliance. I don't know if there's ADA parking or handicap parking in front of your facility now, but certainly something we'd be open to. Yeah, so certainly something, whatever the requirement would be. I know as part of the parking studies, at least I was able to read, there is discussions about whether it should be paid, free parking, paid parking, short-term, long-term. So I know it's something the city's working on. It's not something that we can determine for this project. It's really a city issue.
So when you're calculating how many spots there are, it should be noted that some of those are dedicated to spots. There would be far fewer.
Yeah. So usually that's city parking, correct. Yep.
You depicted handicap spots in the other parking areas, and you depicted potential new arrangement for, that section of Turkey Street for parking, and we rely on those handicap spots.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if we're displacing the current, but certainly something we'd work with the city. It'd be city parking, and certainly something that we would work with them on. For handicap parking, we did bring it inside of our site for what the requirements would be, so we looked at that. And again, from discussions we had on Friday till this morning, we were able to incorporate some additional on-street parking. So we're excited about the addition on there, but certainly we'd work with the city about ADA requirements and things like that. There's codes that we have to follow, so I apologize for not getting that done for the meeting.
Did the angle parking that you put in here include a widening of the street, or did you just, so you scaled back the sidewalks? Is that what, I'm just wondering?
Yeah, it is, so part of that parking, expands onto the property of the site. It expands beyond the limit of the street.
Because it looks like there's no sidewalk there, kind of essentially, like, is that just a curb?
We provided a 5-foot sidewalk in between the angle parking and the building.
Is that ADA compliant?
That is.
5?
Miller, is that sidewalk that big to begin with? On that side? Right.
On the central section there.
And Todd, that translucent part on building number 2, that means there's nothing on the ground floor, there's just parking there?
Correct. We removed any commercial space or anything in that area to have parking underneath the building. From the street, it wouldn't look like a parking lot. We'd have a facade on there, but there would be parking under there to try to increase the parking counts.
Thank you.
So there is some internal parking on that building. We're trying to add more for that now.
And just a comment, the diagonal parking is something that's been discussed in the city before. The concern is having off-street parking because of when it snows, the streets have to be.
So that would end up being street city parking. The angled parking was something that was requested by the city. So we tried to accommodate, but maintenance and snow removal and things like that would be out of our hands. We would take care of everything inside the site.
Did you say that that pool is sort of a placeholder that wouldn't be possible to close it?
No, I think there's a comment about possibly putting making a rooftop pool, and that's not proposed on this development.
But that pool is part of the proposal, it's not just.
Correct. Yeah, it's a typical amenity we try to provide to our residential tenants.
And only it's private in sense it's only
Correct.
for.
That's correct. It's an amenity for the site.
Because if it were not, if that large object dedicated only to tenants were not there and which can be used only part of the year, I mean, think Memorial Day and 4th of July for the year.
Yep.
If that
Got one.
were not there, there would be much more space for the tenants, for the city, rather than having that large object that is unusable for more than half the year. And if it's
it's just a placeholder, I didn't realize you were talking about food. If it's just a placeholder, something that could go there, maybe it would help our discussions, your discussions, to remove it and just have it shown as grass or whatever, so it's possible to use that area, whether it's just for the tenants or for the city as a whole, for uses other than a few weeks out of the year.
So, good comment, and point well taken. We're in the Northeast in pools for Memorial Day or Labor Day, and hopefully we get that one. We're very amenity based, so pool, fire pits, grills, bocce, horseshoes, a lot of things community driven. We want it to feel like a resort style living is what we try to pitch for our developments. Are we going to have that much patio space? Do we need I don't know if it's a 20 by 40 pool that's shown on here. Do we need something that large? Maybe not. Maybe we can make it smaller. Maybe we have more green space. And it's certainly something that we just want to show amenities because amenities are very important to our developments. What they're all going to be, I don't know, but a pool is something that we would like to keep considered for this site.
If you look at most of the hotels around here, I don't know of any that have built recently that have outdoor pools. And Jesse brings up a good point, is that we're in a snow belt, very cold area, and it's only going to get colder from what we understand. So an indoor pool that's smaller with maybe whirlpool, and then maybe if you can incorporate it, like you said, on a higher level and maybe have parking or something underneath, so we're not losing that much square footage of more usable space. I agree with Jesse that that kind of square footage could be maybe used more beneficial for you and the tenants and the community. And an outdoor pool, I think, is not as feasible as something that might be smaller, indoor with whirlpool, etc. And I do encourage you to maybe work with the city to offset some of the costs that you would have to do to build a farmer's market enclosed, to work on a structure that's in the downtown area that we could revitalize to use as a closed downtown, farmer's market project.
Stormwater management, I know we have any goals for that. I know right now, obviously, we're talking about strength of the river, which is around what you have a concept of.
Yeah, so we don't really have any concepts yet, but you're right. I mean, as far as we've done, there's really nothing on site that would currently be construed as stormwater management. And whatever we do is going to have to meet the full regs for the DEC. So, I mean, there'll be water quality and I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's pretty easy for me to say this would be a benefit to the water quality of the river without question.
It's a question. I see the design of the building and the construction material. How committed are you to that design, and would you be willing to work with the planning board and city residents on something that might be more aesthetically pleasing with historic kind of features? Because I think that a lot of the buildings originally in the downtown corridor had a lot of, it has brick, but I don't, it's also modern, and I just wondered your comments on that.
Yeah, we put together a concept for the RFP and tried to incorporate some traditional characteristics with some new ones. Certainly not set in stone. It's something that was put together, for discussion purposes. But I mentioned earlier with, I think, the city members, is we're certainly willing to talk to them about some, advice and some comments about characteristics of the building. And if we can incorporate them into the design, we're certainly willing to work with you.
And as somebody that owns rental property, I see that you have some patios, and there looks like some glass for the patio. So does every unit have a patio?
That's our desire, yes.
Oh, one last question. How much storage facility would tenants have within the building? There's a lot of need for, like you said, bike storage, kayaks, whatever it might be.
Yep. So early on in the design, we didn't design the actual physical units themselves yet. Storage, we're very cognizant of. We try to provide some self-storage units on site if possible for the residents themselves. But certainly the design of proper closet space and things like that is something that we take into consideration when we're designing, golf clubs, bikes, kayaks, like you said, if there's accommodations. We have a lot of bike racks inside and outside for the residents.
But
things like that.
on the lower level, I haven't read them, yeah.
Yeah, you won't find anything in there about storage.
Okay. You can have a basement area where you have sufficient storage for the tenants, because I think that's gonna be a big issue for the
Yeah, we do that in other locations where we do have storage lockers in the garages, and certainly something that we would look at doing that here as well. It
Well,
works
for
out
the
pretty well.
one that doesn't have the underground parking, that's a big concern, because the
Yeah.
one for the underground parking, it's easier to have storage adjacent to the parking garage, but I encourage you to consider and build into your plan, storage facilities that are in the basement area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone, for coming. At this point, I think we'll kind of wrap it up. If you want to come and ask additional questions of the developer, Todd Curley of Prime Companies, feel free. This process has just started, and hopefully we'll be moving forward after meeting with the Common Council on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.